Tonight on Unsolved Mysteries.
Get your hands on the ground!
In 1975, a notorious band of radicals known as the SLA allegedly gunned down an innocent woman during a bank heist. Finally, some 27 years later, they're being brought to trial on murder charges. All except this man. Incredibly, Jim Kilgore is still on the loose. Mike Tellus and Laura Law were together 11 years. Then, according to Laura, Mike abruptly packed his bags and left. But after police questioned her about Mike's whereabouts, Laura also vanished. What investigators found on the property would shock everyone. A beautiful restored southern mansion is now a bed and breakfast. But many guests report experiences that can only be described as supernatural. At least 8 ghosts are said to haunt the property. Spirits of adults and children who died of foul play. Pam Karante's son was viciously murdered by a street gang. Despite her tragic loss, Pam refuses to be overwhelmed by grief. She is pursuing the killers and fighting to rid her neighborhood of gangs once and for all. Perhaps someone watching holds a key that will unlock the secrets of a mystery. Perhaps it's you. Join me for Unsolved Mysteries. April 21st, 1975. On that cool spring morning, 3 volunteers from a local church in Carmichael, California, a suburb of Sacramento, entered the Crocker National Bank. The women had come to deposit the collection from weekend services when suddenly they were surrounded. Authorities contend the 4 armed robbers were members of the notorious Symbionese Liberation Army, or SLA, a ragtag group of power-hungry radicals who advocated the violent overthrow of the U.S. government.
Get your hands on the ground! Get your hands down!
Hold up!
Everyone on the floor!
Get down! Nobody gets hurt! Get down, lady!
The shotgun-toting bank robber was especially menacing. Her manner as chilling as her words.
Everyone on the floor!
Just 10 feet away, 42-year-old Myrna Opsel froze. Then the unimaginable happened.
Let her get down!
She was gunned down in cold blood.
My mother evidently didn't move fast enough. The bank employees pleaded with the robbers to come to her assistance, and they shouted more obscenities and threatened more injury and wouldn't let anyone come to her assistance.
20!
Get up! Get your head down!
The bank robbers appeared to be following a script, every word and movement precise.
Get up!
It was very well coordinated. Everybody had a role, and at all times they were very conscious of the time ticking.
50!
At some point, some of the tellers were grabbed. One woman was kicked. So all of them actually had weapons, and it was very, very violent. And all the time, Myrna Opsal was not dead yet. She laid on the ground, and she literally bled to death on the ground. All the bank robbers ran out of the bank to a car that was waiting for them.
The driver of the getaway car was 20-year-old newspaper heiress Patty Hearst. She had been kidnapped by the Symbionese Liberation Army some 14 months earlier. However, within weeks of her abduction, Hearst assumed the name Tanya and declared herself a revolutionary. The SLA had a marquee name, but the search for Patty Hearst also unleashed the biggest FBI manhunt since John Dillinger. The massive effort paid off. In September 1975, the SLA's 22-month reign of terror came to an end with several arrests, including Patty Hearst. However, the story was far from over. Eyewitnesses to the Crocker Bank heist and the murder of Myrna Opsal could not positively identify the assailants. 24 long years had passed before a stunning twist in the case led to murder indictments. All of the suspects involved in the crime have been arrested and are awaiting trial, except one. The FBI needs your help to bring him in. His name, Jim Kilgore. Jim Kilgore's Odyssey began nearly a year before the shooting at Crocker National Bank. In the spring of 1974, at a San Francisco drive-in theater, Kilgore's girlfriend, Kathy Solia, introduced him to SLA kingpins Bill and Emily Harris.
That's my boyfriend, Jim Kilgore, and he's a great guy.
Kilgore agreed to join the group. Smart and tough, he was a prize catch.
He was born in Portland, Oregon. He was vice president of his senior class. He participated in varsity golf. He was on the high school basketball team. He was very athletic. He attended the University of California at Santa Barbara, graduating in 1969. During that time period, he became acquainted with Kathy Solia.
Solia and Jim Kilgore were welcomed into the group's small inner circle, where Kilgore reportedly proved especially adept at creating false IDs. With the SLA on everyone's most wanted list, he was kept plenty busy.
We know that members of this group would steal credit cards and driver's licenses, for example, at local gymnasiums and other health clubs. We know that they engaged in special missions to steal existing identifications.
In the fall of 1974, the SLA convened at a safe house in a quiet neighborhood of Sacramento.
And we come up with a new structure for this group.
With a small but faithful army gathered around him, Bill Harris allegedly laid out his plan to escalate the SLA's violent revolution against the U.S.
We're
government.
gonna need money to fund the
But anarchy came with a price, and robbing banks offered the quick cash needed to further the group's agenda. According to police, in late February 1975, SLA members held up the Guild Savings and Loan in Sacramento. Allegedly, the point man in the heist was Jim Kilgore.
He was a central member of the group. He was not peripheral. He was actively involved in the violence. He embraced it. You know, that bank robbery was a violent act. He was right there inside the bank.
2 months later, on April 21st, 1975, Emily Harris, Michael Borton, Kathy Solia, and Jim Kilgore reportedly executed the daring holdup at Crocker National Bank, killing customer Myrna Opsel, a mother of 4. Allegedly, Emily Harris fired the fatal blast.
They all stormed the bank knowing someone could get hurt. What was their backup plan at that point? Well, they all chose to let my mother lie on the floor and bleed to death and didn't let people come to her assistance.
The robbers netted more than $15,000. According to police, Bill Harris was the mastermind behind the heist.
The SLA changed modes, essentially, after killing Myrna Opsal and taking the money that they got from robbing the bank and killing her. They now were looking to place bombs in locations that were targeted to kill people. They seemed to be more hungry to take other human lives, and that's what they set out to do.
By the summer of 1975, investigators say the operation has shifted to San Francisco, where SLA members worked odd jobs painting houses. In their spare time, they allegedly planted pipe bombs. Then in late August, Kathy Solia, Bill Harris, and Jim Kilgore made the 375-mile trek south to Los Angeles, reportedly to create more carnage. Authorities believe they were hauling an arsenal of deadly explosives in the back of the car.
Most of them were pipe bombs, using either 2-inch or 3-inch pipe, which is big. The pipe bombs used in Los Angeles were 3-inch pipe, and those are very substantial bombs. They filled those pipe bombs with concrete nails and with gunpowder.
While in Los Angeles, Jim Kilgore and the other SLA members allegedly planted a pipe bomb beneath an LAPD patrol car. But the triggering mechanism malfunctioned, and the officer narrowly escaped serious injury or death. Authorities say it was not an isolated incident.
A call then went out to all the other police cars in the county. Check under your vehicles, and sure enough, an officer with Hollenbeck Division went out and checked underneath all the vehicles and found an identical device under one of the cars there.
Over the next few days, Harris, Soley, and Kilgore returned to San Francisco to rejoin their comrades. But the heat was on. FBI agents acting on a tip finally got a break. The owner of several apartment buildings recognized some house painters he had recently hired as SLA members.
Kind of looks like one of the guys over on the Pacifica unit.
Within hours, Jim Kilgore and the others were under surveillance. The next morning, September 18, 1975, agents followed one of the suspects to a safe house on Presida Avenue.
So they started to watch Presida address, and from watching the Presida address, they see Bill Harris and Emily Harris coming out of the house.
When the Harrises returned from jogging, they were confronted by FBI agents carrying guns and handcuffs.
Put your hands in the air. Turn around. Face the door.
About an hour after that, having identified a second safe house in San Francisco, agents and members of the San Francisco Police Department raided a second location in San Francisco, and during that raid, they apprehended Patty Hearst.
592 days after being abducted at gunpoint, Patty Hearst's days on the lam ended. The high-profile arrests of Hearst and Bill and Emily Harris instantly hit radio and television broadcasts nationwide. Meanwhile, the dragnet closed in on Kathy Solia and Jim Kilgore, who authorities now believe were painting a home in nearby Pacifica.
They raided that house later that afternoon, and when they showed up the house, all the remnants of the painting, the buckets of paint and the paintbrushes were just left drying in the room. A radio was on with an all-news station.
Kathy Solia and Jim Kilgore had simply vanished. When agents searched Kilgore's apartment that afternoon, they found boxes of bomb-making materials. The evidence, FBI lab technicians later determined, positively linked Kilgore to the SLA crime spree.
At that location, they found a fully manufactured bomb similar to the bombs that were placed under the police cars in Los Angeles and also up in San Francisco. When they inspected that bomb, they found his fingerprint.
It was a very good break for law enforcement because it allowed us to charge James Kilgore with a serious offense.
Still, no charges had been filed in the murder of Myrna Opsahl. However, some 24 years later, in June 1999, Kathy Solia was arrested in an upscale Minnesota suburb where she had been living as a homemaker and community activist under the alias Sarah Jane Olson. Olson was brought to Los Angeles to stand trial for planting explosives under a police car in 1975. Her testimony and new advances in forensic science led Sacramento District Attorney Jan Scully to re-examine the Opsahl murder case.
The state of the evidence today has convinced me now is the time to seek justice for Myrna Opsahl.
I still miss my mother intensely, and she's missing out on the best years of her life and her grandkids and all. But this isn't about revenge or paybacks. It's just a matter of justice, that they chose to do this and they need to be held accountable.
SLA members Bill Harris, Emily Harris, Michael Borton, Kathy Solia, and Jim Kilgore have all been indicted in the case. Under the felony murder rule, they're all potentially responsible for the death of Myrna Opsahl. Patty Hearst, who had been granted immunity in exchange for her testimony about the shooting, is expected to be the prosecution's star witness. No date has been set for the trial. Now the only missing suspect is Jim Kilgore. He's still on the loose.
The heat has definitely been turned up more and more throughout the course of the last 2.5 years for Mr. Kilgore. So I'm sure he's probably looking over his shoulder a little bit more every day.
This is a picture of Jim Kilgore in 1975 at age 27. Kilgore is now in his mid-50s. Authorities believe he has used as many as 13 different aliases, and he may have altered his appearance. Laura Law and her boyfriend of 11 years, Mike Tellus, enjoyed entertaining in their Arkdale, Wisconsin home. Denise Piccioni and her husband were often guests.
We so want to go to Vegas. Every year we do what you want to do.
Denise was Mike's cousin and Laura's best friend.
Laura was just a wonderful person. She had wonderful family dinners, and she was good to Mike. I saw Mike very happy. I never saw them argue or fight, and they were a lot of fun to be with.
Where is it?
Calm
Where is
down.
the money? Huh? We're almost broke.
However, one night in March 2001, Mike Tellus was ready to argue when he tracked Laura down at a nearby casino where she'd gone to gamble with Denise and her mother.
Denise, Marie, I gotta go.
What's wrong?
Mike showed up. He's in the truck. He's so upset. He wants me to go.
Laura,
right
look
now.
at me. What happened?
She was just trembling. She was shaking. And I said, well, what's wrong? And she said, I don't know. He's depressed. Something's wrong with him. We gotta go.
You guys stay and have a good time.
Okay, will you call me?
Yeah, tomorrow. I'll call you tomorrow.
And I said, you know, Ma, something's just not right here, because he doesn't get mad. He doesn't have a temper. Well, he has a temper, but he usually says what he needs to say, and it's over.
After that night, Mike Tellus would never be seen again. According to friends and family, Mike's behavior in the casino may indeed have been out of character, but for him to completely avoid contact with them was incomprehensible. Strangely, however, one person who claimed to know where Mike went, his longtime girlfriend, Laura Law. Ultimately, she too would disappear.
Mike, please don't go.
When they returned from the casino, Laura said Mike packed some clothes and $73,000 in cash, which she said came from the graphics business they owned. He then set out on foot from their rural home in the middle of the night.
I said, that's so strange. He left on foot, and she said, yeah. And I said, Laura, why would he leave all of his vehicles? I said, this doesn't make any sense. And she said, well, I think he had a trucker pick him up.
He's my cousin. He's like the sweetest guy in the world. Why would he just disappear?
That's what I want to know.
I thought she was lying, but I thought she was trying to cover her embarrassment. Maybe he said, I'm leaving you for another woman.
Well, we had that big fight the first night.
I thought, I need to give her the benefit of the doubt, because we truly loved her as a family member also. I didn't want to actually take sides with either one of them. And then 2 weeks after Mike disappeared, she called me up and she goes, well, he just called and he's out west. And I said, well, when's he coming home? And she goes, well, I asked him, are you ready to come home yet? And he said, no.
4 months passed and there was still no sign of Mike Tellus. But because Mike and Laura ran their own business, few knew Mike was gone. By midsummer, though, Denise insisted Laura talk to Mike's family. They had still not been told about his strange disappearance.
I'm going to tell him that he's on an extended fishing trip in Winnipeg.
What? And I said, this is going on too long. If this was my son, I'd be furious if somebody didn't tell me that he's been missing.
I don't want to worry them.
I don't care. You've got to tell them, all right?
Oh, all right. Okay, I'll tell them the truth.
To Denise's shock, Laura lied to Mike's mother anyway and told her that Mike had gone to Canada.
It was so bizarre. That scared me. It scared me that she would be so underhanded to plot and say, this is what we're going to say.
With her suspicions now aroused, Denise recalled other instances of Laura's increasingly bizarre behavior.
Hello? Hi, this is Denise.
Oh, hi, Denise.
I'm going to come today and get my snowmobiles, okay?
Well, Sure, but I don't have the keys.
Denise's snowmobiles were stored in a shed in Mike and Laura's backyard, and Laura seemed determined to prevent anyone from entering the padlocked shed.
I don't know what's going on with you, but for the past 3 weeks, every time I called about the snowmobiles, you have some other reason why I can't come get them.
I said, Laura, if you don't have the snowmobiles out of that shed, I'm coming with a locksmith, and I'll replace the locks and pay for it and give you new keys and new locks. I said, but I need my snowmobiles.
I don't know what you're making such a big deal about this for.
Because you put me through the ringer trying to get these snowmobiles. I'm telling you something, if that shed isn't open, I'm gonna break it open.
Denise?
Laura had removed the snowmobiles by herself, but she was still preventing anyone else from entering the shed. The thought now crossed Denise's mind. Could something to do with Mike's disappearance be hidden in the shed?
It was the straw that broke the camel's back. I called Mike's brother and I said, Mark, we have to talk. I said, something's wrong. Something's terrible wrong.
4 months after Mike Tellus disappeared, Mark Tellus filed a missing persons report with the local authorities.
Because of the way the stories weren't jiving and things didn't add up and no one's heard from him, I didn't hesitate at all. And he left everything, and that also made me very suspicious that something happened to him.
The case was ultimately assigned to investigator Gary Silka.
Did you find anything?
Laura seemed to be very cooperative the day that we were there. She also invited me to look around on the property if I desired.
What do you normally keep in the shed?
Oh, we usually...
Laura threw a roadblock in front of me when I asked to go into that building.
Can we take a look?
Well, actually, I cleared all of that stuff out a couple months ago so that I could rent it.
Do you have a key?
Oh, no. The man I rented it to has the key.
You don't have a spare?
Oh, no, but I couldn't let you in there anyway.
Right, and what's his name?
George. George Giuliani.
Laura agreed to make arrangements for Mr. Giuliani to drive up to the Arkdale property and then meet law enforcement so we could continue the search inside the shed.
Authorities now believe that within hours of being questioned by investigators, Laura Law hastily fled her home. Her whereabouts are still not known. It would take several more months of investigation before Gary Silka was granted a search warrant for the property. On January 22, 2002, investigators finally entered the mystery shed.
The minute that we stepped inside, I could smell the strong, pungent odor of what I believe to be that of a decomposing human body.
In the near-empty shed, under several pieces of wood and covered in a blanket and plastic wrapping, police found the decomposed body of Mike Tellus. He had been dead between 9 and 10 months.
The autopsy showed cause of death was attributed to a single gunshot wound to the back of the victim's head. Several years before the incident, Laura Law had purchased a 9mm handgun. We believe that that is the weapon that was used in the homicide of Michael Tellus.
Despite the evidence, those who knew them were stunned to conclude Laura had murdered Mike.
I was with her for 11 years, and I thought she was a wonderful person.
Is it the best?
Did I know her at all? Is Laura the one that we had so much fun with and did things with? Is that Laura? Or is this Laura the one that shot him? Who is Laura? It's unbelievable. What happened? That's bottom line. What happened?
I'm almost sure that she has a gambling problem. And I think that's probably what triggered this.
We're about broke. Where is it?
Michael may have told her that enough was enough and that she needed to consider leaving. And Laura didn't want to leave that relationship and didn't want to leave the life as she knew it. A summer lightning storm thunders over St. Francisville, Louisiana,
illuminating the Myrtles Plantation. The Myrtles is an infamous 200-year-old antebellum mansion. Converted to a bed and breakfast decades ago, it claims to be one of America's most haunted houses. Shooting, poisoning, lynching are just a few of the deadly means by which the ghosts of the Myrtles met their mortal demise. At least 8 people died violent deaths here, and legend has it their spirits remain on the premises, appearing regularly to guests and staff alike.
I've had enough happen to let me know that other people live here that we can't always see.
Perhaps the Myrtles Plantation was destined to be haunted. Legend has it that in 1796, the original owner, General David Bradford, built the house directly on top of an ancient Indian burial ground. Since that time, literally hundreds of sightings of the unexplained have occurred. Could spirits be haunting the plantation? Thousands believe they are. This mysterious mansion is said to be a window into the supernatural. Guests here are well aware of the possibility of having a ghostly encounter.
I guess I have to say I really didn't believe that there were actually ghosts or spirits there, that it was just folklore and legend. And it wasn't until I was already in that things began to happen that convinced me that, yes, they are here. But by then it was too late. Financially, I couldn't afford to be scared.
When Amy Campbell and her friend Michelle came to stay at the B&B last October 30th, they were well informed of its ghostly past.
We were very hesitant if we were going to stay all night because we had heard that the place was haunted. We had heard that there were ghosts that visit people at night, that tuck you in, fix your clothes. We weren't sure we wanted to experience any of that. I obviously was sleeping for a little while, and I woke up feeling bouncing on the end of my bed, and I saw a little girl jumping on the end of my bed, and I thought, surely I'm dreaming, and I stuck my head back under the covers. It kept bouncing and bouncing and bouncing. It felt like forever, and all of a sudden it stopped. And I looked back up, and the little girl that was jumping on the bed was gone.
The child ghost is thought to be Cornelia Woodruff, one of 4 people who died in a tragic set of events 175 years ago. Cornelia was the daughter of Judge Woodruff, whose family lived at the Myrtles in the early 1800s. When the Woodruff's house slave, Chloe, was caught eavesdropping on the judge, he was compelled to punish her.
This is the 3rd time I've caught you.
I wasn't listening.
I will not tolerate this.
Sir, please, no.
This time you will be punished.
Oh, Judge, please,
The judge had Chloe's ear cut off. Fearful of also being sent to the fields to do hard labor, Chloe made a plan. She decided to grind poisonous oleander leaves into a birthday cake, hoping to make the family ill. Then she would endear herself by nursing them back to health.
I baked your favorite cake, Miss Sarah.
She may have thought she was boiling just enough oleander to make the family sick. Already knowing what was wrong, she would take care of them, be the hero, and be left in the household to take care of them.
But Chloe's scheme backfired. Young Cornelia, her mother and sister all died from the poison.
A lot of guests want to know what happened to Chloe after the poisoning. It's believed that she was killed by a mixed mob. Black and whites were probably together. Of course, the other slaves were probably afraid of what was going to happen to them. She was supposedly beaten, hung, and then thrown into the river.
It is said that Cornelia, along with her mother and sister, have joined Chloe in eternally haunting the house.
I think I've been frightened more in the day than at night.
Arlen Dees owned and restored Myrtles Plantation over 30 years ago. He remembers his first ethereal encounter very well. It was 1970, and he was mowing the north lawn.
First of all, I never thought that I would see any type of ghost. It was in the afternoon, approximately 4 or 5 o'clock, And as I was mowing, I simply looked up, and there was this vision. And then with a blink of an eye, he was gone. Well, needless to say, there's a chill factor that comes over one when that occurs.
The vision Arlen saw is said to be the ghost of the elderly caretaker who was robbed and killed on the estate in 1927. Three years ago, Mark and Holly Parenti spent a frightening night at the Myrtles. Back then, Mark had been reluctant to visit, but knew his wife would be intrigued by the hotel's history.
It's known as one of the most haunted plantations in America, and I wasn't looking forward to finding out why.
Come right up. It is. It's a beautiful house.
Hester, the tour guide, came out and she says, you know, welcome to the Myrtles.
Oh, and by the way, you're the only guest here tonight.
Really?
Yeah. Come on. Don't worry about that.
Tell him he's fine. It was scary. The thought of being in this haunted house by ourselves, no one else in here, was very scary, more probably to Mark than me, but I was scared too.
Perhaps the Parentis had reason to be nervous. A former Myrtles owner is said to haunt that very staircase. Mark and Holly's room was just beyond that same flight of stairs.
My mind had gotten to me a little bit because I wouldn't let her turn the lights off. So we're laying in bed and she's sort of having a nervous chit-chat, and what I heard was a very deep sounding bang.
It sounds like someone's on the steps.
As soon as I heard that noise, you know, the adrenaline rush.
I'm gonna go.
No, no, Holly, stay here.
Oh, come on.
No.
I wanna look. If I had to venture a guess, it sounded like footsteps.
The reason for the murder of the prominent homeowner remains a mystery.
Winners! William Winners!
It was late one night in 1871 when a mysterious horseman appeared on the Myrtles' front lawn.
Who's there? Are you William Winners? Yes, I'm William Winners.
Whoever was there shot him in the chest. He made it back through the double doors, trying to reach his wife, Sarah. She was upstairs.
Sarah! Sarah!
No, William! He only made it to the 17th step.
Oh, no. No, William.
He died there in her arms.
I wish someone would be able to explain it other than the story that I heard, but I can't tell you for sure what it was. All I know was that it was enough for me. You know, it was enough for me to make me want to leave.
In a way, I think we were both hoping it might have been our imagination, but it definitely wasn't.
For all who venture to Myrtles Plantation for a glimpse of the hereafter, perhaps they should take advice from those who have actually braved the halls of this haunted house.
There are certain times that I'm uncomfortable here. Certain times that, yeah, you could say I get the creeps. I can't explain it. It's no certain hour. It's just times. You can walk in, and as I said before, you can feel a sadness. Or you can walk in and you hear, especially upstairs, footsteps. You know you hear them. Someone is right behind you. You can stop. The footsteps stop.
Once you have the encounter and you feel the sensation, you will know that their intention is not to harm you. They are truly here to protect you. They protect this home. This is their station. This is their life. This is where they live.
Is the Myrtles Plantation truly haunted? We can't say for sure, but our production crew certainly had more than their share of unexplained technical difficulties. Electrical equipment, including cameras, cell phones, and walkie-talkies, constantly malfunctioned. Were these just mysterious mishaps or ghostly intervention?
The tetanus shots, those are what hurt.
For Pam Karate, It was just another day of running errands in her quiet working-class neighborhood of Freeport, New York. As Pam was driving her teenage son to the doctor, she saw what appeared to be a terrible car accident.
What's going on? I can't see anything, can you? I said to my son, look over there and see what's going on. So he just looked over and said, I don't see anything. You can't see anything. There's just ambulances all over. So I passed it. I took him to the doctor's office. We came back home.
It was then that Pam received an unusual phone call about her eldest son, 21-year-old Damien Karate.
No, he's not. May I take a message? And I got a phone call from one of his friends asking me, is Damien there? Out for an errand. I said, no, he's not. He was going to go out to see his friends. Aren't you with him? No. Okay, never mind. And they hung up. Hello? And that was just, the whole thing was odd.
After paging Damien to no avail, and with the accident still fresh in her mind, Pam decided to check local hospitals.
I called South Nassau Hospital. Hi, my name's Pam Karate. And said, do you have a Damien Karate there? Yes, who is this? I said, this is his mom. I said, is he there? Is he okay? Why didn't anybody call me? Why aren't I being informed? What's going on? Just tell me what's going on. And she said, didn't the detective come to your house yet?
Within minutes, Pam was at the hospital. Her son Damien had been involved in the incident she saw earlier, but it was no traffic accident.
And my son was there on the bed, and he was in a hospital gown. And he looked like a complete angel. And I went to hug him, and there was blood on my hand. When they told me he was shot 5 times in the head, I couldn't comprehend it. Everything went crazy at that point.
Then I saw my wife crying on the other side of the door. There was the nurse. And then I said to her, what's the matter? She said, he's dead. Just like that. Something died in me that day, too.
Pam Karate and her husband Damiano soon learned that their son had died in a gang shooting. Now the grieving parents had to deal with insinuations that Damien was himself a gang member and had somehow played a role in his own murder. But to Pam Karate, that just didn't make any sense.
Damien was a pre-med student at Stony Brook University. And he had an ambition, and that was to go to college and to get his degree and become an anesthesiologist. My son had absolutely no gang affiliation. That was proven over and over. It was written in every newspaper. He was absolutely not a part of a gang and had no gang affiliation.
Yeah, that's fine. Why don't you go ahead and fax me?
Mom, I'm taking off.
Could you hold on one second? Honey, could you do something for me? Can you run this by the bank?
Okay.
Okay. What time are you gonna be back?
Before dinner.
Dinner's at 6:30.
All right.
Okay, thanks, honey. I appreciate it.
Okay.
In the weeks leading up to his death, Damien had returned home for winter break and had rekindled friendships he formed in high school.
One of those friends was a man by the name of Harold Zambrano.
Good looking kid. Yo, poppy chunk for me, yo?
Yeah, sure.
Harold was a 19-year-old member of a local gang called Nientes.
Yo, son, can you roll by the school or by, the laundromat and stuff?
I was just looking for these punks. These punks? Why? What's up?
Harold told Damien that 2 days earlier he was jumped by members of MS-13, a violent El Salvadorian street gang, originally from Los Angeles.
They jumped you?
Yeah, man, look at that. They cracked me over the head with a bottle.
Oh, that looks horrible.
Yeah, I know, son.
Harold asked Damien for help.
That's what I'm gonna go.
Damien had the biggest heart in the world. That was part of his problem. Anybody asked him for anything, he would do it and he would be there, even if he had his own plans.
That's not right.
I know, yo. That's why you got my back, son. We're gonna go look for these cats.
Yeah, I got your back.
Damien Karate, on the day that he died, I'm sure had no idea as to what he was getting involved in. Harold Zambrano, being a gang member, probably never publicized that fact to Damien.
At a local strip mall, Harold found what he was looking for.
Yo, that's one of them. That's one of them right there. Stop the car. Stop the car.
19-year-old Herman de Leon.
Herman de Leon is a known MS-13 member and was wearing the colors, so there was no question in their mind that they had found somebody.
Yo, we're friends now, son.
They approached Herman de Leon.
Who are you? Who are you? Don't play stupid, son. Did you do this?
They confronted him with the injury to Harold Zambrano.
I didn't do that, yo. I was over here waiting for my girl. Yo, what are you talking about? Waiting for your girl. You lying, son.
He was there at the laundromat with his girlfriend. De Leon admitted that he was an MS-13 member and told him that he had nothing to do with that particular incident.
Do nothing like that, son. It's not worth it.
Zambrano and those guys indicated that they respected the fact that he was with his girlfriend and they wouldn't cause him any trouble while he was with his girlfriend.
Forget about it.
Damien, Harold, and the others returned to their car, and the incident would have ended right there if it weren't for a tragic coincidence. 2 more members of the MS-13 stumbled onto the scene.
That's one of our boys, kid.
The confrontation then exploded into violence.
Yeah, get that.
Harold Zambrano was shot in the neck and critically injured. Damien Corrente was fatally shot 5 times in the head. A police investigation quickly revealed the identity of the alleged shooters: Herman de Leon, Mario Portillo, and Juan Gil Ferrufino. But the suspects could not be found.
The whole family was absolutely devastated. And detectives started coming to my house, and police started coming to my house, and all of my children's friends started coming to my house, and they would sit the kids down and say to them, "Tell me about gangs." And the kids started telling about gangs. And I was shocked. I said, "Why didn't you tell me about gangs?" Then I began driving around to look for myself. And I saw exactly what they said. I went up to the junior high school and the high school, and I saw them, and you can tell by their colors, and you can tell by the bandanas. I was totally unaware. And I saw kids hanging out in different, it never occurred to me. I just thought it was just groups and groups.
These groups are extremely violent. Males between the ages of 18 and 25, sometimes younger.
Later that week, Pam attended a police forum on gangs held in reaction to her son's murder.
Are these groups?
When someone asked the question point blank, are there gangs here in Freeport? The answer was,
I would have to say at this moment, not really.
And that's when I went berserk.
How dare you tell these people there's no gang activity here? My son Damien.
And I just stood up in front of everyone and I started screaming. How dare you even say that when my son was murdered on your doorstep by gangs, and you're gonna tell them there's no gangs in Freeport?
There's graffiti all over the town, all the repetitive patterns we've been seeing.
It was at that moment that Pam Karate had an epiphany. She would lead the charge to rid her neighborhood of gangs.
Perhaps you would like to join me for a closed meeting with the mayor tomorrow night on this very topic.
I would love to, yes. Thank you.
Make it?
I would love to come. Thank you.
I had no choice.
So, again,
I had to fight. It was either that or go with the rage and the anger and the hate. So I can't do that. But I can fight back by trying to educate our children and trying to find a way for them, and to educate the parents to educate the children.
Pam and the Freeport Police Department formed GASP, the Gang Awareness Suppression Program.
Pam Karate. Hi, I'm here in the neighborhood. I'm trying to raise awareness of the gang problem we have here.
We have a gang problem in this neighborhood?
Yes, actually we do.
We're opening their eyes to a very big problem that maybe didn't exist when we were kids. And it was such a good, healthy outlet instead of the hate and the anger and the rage and the frustration that I was feeling, living only blocks from the mother and father of the kids who killed my son.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate your help.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I hope I can make a difference. I don't know that I am, but I hope I can.
Since Pam founded GASP, not one person has died from gang violence in the Freeport area.
The stone with the black, look.
But even though Pam finds her new work rewarding, it will never take away the pain of losing her son.
When it blooms, it's going to be beautiful.
There is only one thing that would help: catching the alleged killers of Damien Corrente. Although police trace Herman de Leon, Maria Portillo, and Juan Gil Ferrufino to El Salvador, they now believe the suspects may have returned to the United States. All three are young Hispanic males and may be hiding in Los Angeles or Miami. With every mystery, one critical clue may lead to a solution. Join us again for Unsolved Mysteries.